Good evening, everyone. Coming up on the porch, it's Live on the Porch with Eric the Undertaker. As you come onto the porch, if you go ahead and tap on that screen, letting everybody know that the porch is open. Happy Tuesday evening. Hope everybody had a wonderful Veterans Day. If you were home off work, thank you to all of those that served. Thanks, Kathy. Hi, Tina. Welcome. Hi, Johnny. Susie, welcome so much. Welcome to the porch. Where the heart can rest, where the broken find solace and the weary feel blessed. We've all got our stories and the night's still young. So pull up a chair, porch talk's begun. Yeah, pull up a chair, porch talk's begun. Good evening, everybody. Yes, Porch Talk has begun. We are so incredibly grateful for you to be with us here tonight. We're a few minutes late. We had to finish up getting dinner ready for the kids who are off school today. Had to get a post up. Please go check out my latest Irish miracle. Those of you that ask about some more miracle posts, that's up there now. I'm joined by some incredible moderators tonight. I know Susie and Carol, I believe. I think Susie and Renee are on tonight, as well as my beautiful wife, Allison, sitting across from me, who will be asking the questions. Good evening, honey.
Hi.
We come several times a week live on the porch and answer your questions about death, dying, maybe even your own grief journey. Maybe you want to share with us. Maybe you want to share with the rest of the group. That's one of our... Hi, Renee. One of our goals is to build a community. We'll get to your questions in just a few minutes. But go ahead and drop now, if you will. There's Yuma, Arizona. Go ahead and drop in the comments where you're checking in from tonight so we can take roll call with all our Porchketeers and new friends, please. Hope some of you at least got the day off. Ohio, Kentucky, Long Beach, Washington, New Hampshire, San Diego, Steph, Carol, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas, Modesto, California. Darlene, welcome. Texas, Ohio, Waco, Texas. Wherever you're checking in from tonight, we are so glad you're with us. We're here to answer any questions you might have about death, dying, your own grief, your grief journey, or anything you've ever wanted to ask a mortician, maybe at a cocktail party. Nothing is off the table. We're grateful for you. And we're going to get started right into our questions. So, honey, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Amalia, when someone passes, do they have to go into a body bag? I don't think I could witness that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the daily hearts. Those are greatly appreciated. Amalia, I'll get to your question in just a second. Yes, our goal for this evening is cats in honor of our porch cats that you sometimes see in the background. So how about that, Allison? I actually picked cats for our gift.
How about that?
I know. I'm not a huge cat person, but
He's not a cat person.
My wife sure is, and her and my youngest are just enjoying we got kittens dumped on us earlier this year, and we've done our best to find new homes, but some of them are still around, and they make great outdoor cats. So, yeah, Amalia, a body bag can be very upsetting and disturbing to families. And here's the thing: there's a time and place for it. Generally, if somebody dies at a hospital, they are going to go into a bag as required by hospital protocol. Sometimes with coroner, medical examiner is going to be the same. If they die at home under hospice care and we respond to that death and go out and receive the remains into our care, we're generally not going to use a body bag. We're going to use a sheet, a pillow, make them look as comfortable as possible because we have the ability to kind of soften that experience. You can always ask if you find yourself in that situation. You can always ask and make sure that they don't use plastic or any type of body bag, and they should be able to accommodate that. So,
Michelle Hodge is a dog person.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, we've got dogs too.
Matthew, saw my wife's grandma tonight. Didn't really look like her. Face was sinking in.
Yeah, Matthew, I was thinking about you. I know you said that was going to be coming up, and I'm so sorry for that experience. Yeah, it can be difficult. I don't know exactly what happened. We're also just not used to people, looking at people laying down. And sometimes gravity takes effect. I wish that they maybe had filled her in a little bit more so she wasn't so emaciated. That's what it sounds like it was, Matthew. But I'm sorry it wasn't exactly what your family expected, because that doesn't help the situation at all.
Do you have to be embalmed?
No, we do not. Embalming is not required by law, Kim. Most states don't require it, except for certain, particular situations. What we do have to do is make sure the remains are cared for with dignity and properly per moral ethics and regulation. Oftentimes, like us, we have to begin either refrigeration immediately or do the embalming procedure. One or the other has to begin. So,
what happens if you put too much embalming fluid in a male?
In a male or just anybody? Because if there's too much fluid, and generally we can try to estimate how much they're going to need, when we're mixing the fluid, determining the index of the fluid. So we can oftentimes variate that, and even if we get to a point and we know the embalming procedure is completely done, we can shut the machine off early. So it shouldn't happen. If too much embalming fluid goes in, there could be some swelling that takes place. And we don't want that because it is a pressurized procedure.
Hi, is the provisional license hard? I'm a mortuary student, and I was wondering before I took it.
A provisional license, I'm not familiar with. That must be something specific in your state. So I don't know if that's something prior to you going to mortuary college so you can begin to work on your apprenticeship or internship, or what exactly that is. But I'm not familiar with that because that's not something in my state. We do have internships and apprenticeships that are required. In my state, it's 2 years. Most states, it's either 1 to 2 years. Sometimes it can be done prior to mortuary science college, and maybe that's what you are referring to. So,
did you watch 6 Feet Under? And if you did, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's a great series. In fact, we are trying to find a good starting time to do a rewatch and actually do that with people that want to join us. We'll watch one episode a week at a time, and then come on and talk about it a little bit. It's very accurate, incredibly written, and very well directed. So always been a fan of that. Go ahead, tap on that screen if you would, please. Tapping is clapping, as they say. And that doesn't cost you anything. Thanks so much. But what it does do is it helps notify TikTok that we are live on the porch and we are in and open for questions. So,
can my family take in my makeup? I know I won't be there. Makeup others have used creeps me out.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I understand. They can bring in your makeup. Now, some of the foundation may need to be specific mortuary cosmetics, but oftentimes we can add some personalized color with lips, eye makeup, nail polish, that type of thing of the deceased that's personal to them. Thanks so much for the porch lights. Those are my favorite porch lights. I think people are starting to know that because I get them every now and then.
Yeah.
We have a goal of cats on the porch tonight. Thanks so much, Florence, for hitting those off for us.
Kim has a follow-up question.
Sure.
Asking if embalming was required. It costs a daily price to be chilled if no embalming till the funeral.
E42's on the porch. Thanks so much, friend, for coming and checking us out tonight. Lemon Lion, thank you. Kim, oftentimes there's a set fee for X amount of days. Which is either part of the package, or refrigeration is for up to 5 or 7 days. So generally it's not going to cost any more unless the time gets extended. But you're right. That's one of the things that we make sure that we talk to families about and make sure their decision is going to be also cost effectiveness. So if it's going to cost less to do the embalming rather than an extended amount of refrigeration, we will give them that option.
Nia wants to know if you're using Siri to answer the questions or ask the questions.
No, that's my wife, Allison. So you kind of sound like Siri now, huh?
I guess so.
Yeah. She's just
Until I
got
make a mistake.
perfect. I could listen to her voice all night long.
Except for the last night when I didn't have a mic on.
Yeah, I know. We didn't have the mics plugged in, but it worked out just fine. We still had plenty of people that came in and joined us, honey.
What's your mental health routine?
So it's important that I stay healthy both mentally and emotionally. And I do have some very heavy days. And many of the Porchketeers know I have three ingredients to my coping mechanism, and that's faith, family, and fun. Oftentimes when I've had heavy days at the mortuary, dealing with difficult families, difficult deaths, just the situations in general, sometimes I'll go to my faith, go to my God to recenter myself. Sometimes, all times, I go home to my family and just surround myself by the love and gratitude of my family. And then I try to incorporate joy into everything I do on a daily basis. Even at work, I try to be joyful, even though it's not always the most joyful situations we're dealing with. It's important that I filter everything through joy. And that's how I do it.
How do you insert embalming fluid? And do you have to remove something to be able to insert it?
Very good question. So embalming is a surgical procedure that replaces the normal body fluid with a chemical preservative. And we use both the artery. Our circulatory system has two main vessels, the artery, arterial system, and the veins. And we raise both vessels over a major area, so oftentimes the carotid area by the collarbone, bring the artery up, incise that with an incision and put a cannula into it. So it's not like an IV situation. It's a pressurized machine, more like a pump that has to go into the artery. We inject the embalming fluid into the artery, and then we open the vein and drain the blood through the vein. So we use both of the vessels to accommodate. One goes in and one comes out.
Have you ever seen anything that makes you question being a mortician?
So the only two things, and they actually happen in the same time period. COVID was very difficult to handle. The increase in cases that we had, COVID deaths in general, just, sometimes we'd go to the same nursing home 4 or 5 times in the same day. Having families that weren't able to do what they wanted to do funerals and memorialize and to begin their grief process because of the restrictions on COVID made it very difficult for me and for us. So 2020, 2021 was very difficult. And then the end of 2020, we lost our oldest son after an epileptic seizure. And above anything that's ever made me question being a mortician, it was probably that. Just because all of a sudden, after all those years of experience, after all the thousands of deaths that I had dealt with and helped families through, my world was completely destroyed with my own death. And I honestly didn't know. There were days that I told my wife, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue to do what I do. But ultimately, taking it one day at a time, it actually made me better at what I do, and a greater understanding of what people are going through, which, ultimately I found peace in that and strength, both personally and professionally.
Do the arteries ever collapse and make it difficult to embalm?
Yeah, so oftentimes we have situations where embalming is more difficult. If a person is dehydrated, it can be... Rachel, make sure to watch Rachel's comment. If you can see Rachel's comment, I just want to address that. And epilepsy. So the arteries, if during dehydration, can be more difficult. It can be more difficult to raise. If somebody has been, terminally ill for a long time, they haven't eaten or drank in days or weeks. Sometimes it can be very difficult. It's okay, honey. If you can't find it, I can remember it. And And then the other thing is, hardening of the arteries, which is very common. And an artery should feel like a rubber hose, literally like a rubber hose, and has the same texture in the bounce back. If there's hardening, sclerotic arteries, it's almost like rock or glass, and it's very difficult to cut into and to inject through, because there's going to be lots of areas that have blockage. So there are things that can affect that. So,
Is this Rachel?
Yeah, Rachel.
Being newly diagnosed with epilepsy, that scares me.
Yeah, Rachel, and I don't say it to scare you. And I want you to know that most people are able to find the right medication combination to be able to live, very healthy lives, although sometimes challenging with seizures. But you just need to become an incredible partner, with your neurologist and your doctors. And also, you also have to realize that when our son died, it was sudden epileptic death, and there was nothing that we could do about it. So, but it's very rare. It's very uncommon when that does happen. So, and he lived many years on medication, because of, medical science. So please embrace that.
Burying family members with a cremated family member, is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. We do it all the time, Spotlight on the Bay. We oftentimes have families that, let's say the wife wanted to be buried and the husband was cremated, and they just wait. She held the cremated remains until she passed away, and they gave instructions to put the urn inside the casket. So it's actually fairly common.
I'm a nurse in long-term care. Is it true hearing goes last?
Well, what I have just learned is that I don't know about hearing specifically. I've never heard that hearing really goes, maybe when they're still alive is what you're referring to, because I have heard that before, that people, even in coma, sometimes can hear things. But what I did find fascinating, there's recent articles, new research results that show that after somebody's clinically dead, so cardiopulmonary arrest or death has taken place, that the brain, there's some areas of the brain, including the area that stores memories, that can still be active for 7 to 8 minutes after, which explains sometimes when people have near-death experiences or they're brought back, they oftentimes kind of, their life kind of plays in front of them. And that's exactly why.
I think you just answered Casey Dean's question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's fascinating, Casey. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and that type of thing just, where science meets kind of the spiritual side of it. Because if you believe that the spirit then leaves, but there's still a moment that's kind of in between.
Do you feel comfortable answering this question? Did you take care of your son when he passed?
Oh boy. So we just had the 5th anniversary of our son's death. And no, we did not. We had a friend of ours who owns a funeral home come and take his remains, and so he was cared very well with incredible dignity. I also knew that, personally, that I needed to grieve. And I just didn't want anything professionally to do, with his death. Although we were with him, and I was with him the entire time, including actually my brother came and was with me the evening that we cremated him, and we walked him to the crematory together. And I pulled up a chair and literally stayed for the entire cremation process until his cremated remains came out of the chamber. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Have you had family members request to dress and do hair makeup on their loved ones?
Yeah, Darlene, we do sometimes, and we encourage it. If there's things that are appropriate for them to do, and they want to try doing it, I think that's wonderful. The more families can be actively involved in the process, then they are going to get good out of it, because it's going to actually connect them with the process and build them to be stronger as they just begin their grief journey. Thanks so much, E4T. I appreciate that.
What vein and how many veins are used to drain blood and bowel fluids?
So oftentimes the majors, like we'll use the jugular vein if we're doing the carotid artery. The jugular vein is one of the most popular to drain the blood. The bowel fluids are just very different. So the hollow organs that the arterial embalming fluid doesn't, so the inside they're not going to clear. So after the arterial embalming is done, then we have to aspirate. We use a long thing called a trocar to suction out the contents of all the hollow organ, including the heart, including the lungs, if there's anything in the lungs, the kidney, the intestines, the bladder, everything that we will use to suction out those items. And then we replace it with a cavity fluid, which is another form of embalming fluid, high index embalming fluid. So great question, though.
Do mortuary workers like to think about the person they might have been while working post-mortem?
Do mortuary workers like to think about the person they might have been while working post-mortem? Thanks so much for the origami. I'm not sure what that means. So is it about the deceased?
Yeah.
So what they were like? Yeah. So oftentimes here, if I can coordinate it, I will meet with the family before going and helping, prepare the deceased in any way. And the reason I do that is because I want to know something about them. Now, the deceased aren't going to tell me. There's sometimes signs that we can tell. Sometimes tattoos tell stories or different, things they come in with. But the main source is the family. And I enjoy hearing that. And then when I go and help prepare the deceased, anything that we have to do or care for them, I'll often talk to the deceased, even though they're not there, and say, hey, I met with your family. They told me you all got to take a trip to Hawaii, or that you used to be in the Navy and you traveled the world there. And they're so proud of you and how incredible of a father you were, or mother, or whatever it is. And I do that, not because I'm crazy and that I think they're listening to me, and I ever expect a response, but just because I want to honor them and I want to honor their story and I want to connect with them. It's kind of having, one hand on the family and one hand on the deceased at the same time. And what I learned from the family and what I can kind of communicate to the deceased is kind of connected, through my heart that way, if that makes sense.
Has anyone ever been brought in that wasn't dead? That's a fear of mine.
No, I've never had that happen, Beverly. And it's, I know you've seen articles, videos, the rare occasion that there ends up being sign of life after that. But it just, it's never happened to me in almost 30 years. So rest assured, I don't think it's ever going to happen to you.
How long between death and cremation?
Yeah, so it just depends on the state. I've heard of some states that just within a couple of days they can do cremation. Here in my state, it takes about 7 to 10 days to get all the documentation done, everything we need to do, authorizations from the family, and then to be able to move, forward with cremation. Now, sometimes there's certain religions that facilitate us wanting to do it quicker. Because it's just part of their culture. And we will do rush. We will try to expedite that. Sometimes we can do it within 3 business days. For instance, the Hindu ceremony is focused all around the cremation itself. And it's beautiful, but they want to try to expedite it as much as possible.
Eric, you are an amazing mortician in person, very compassionate.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy, so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Are you finding the rubberized clots that aren't blood?
Yeah, I find clots. I find clots clots are just an embalmer's challenge. They always have been. They always will be. It's a natural part of the process. When we die, our blood begins to coagulate, called coagula. And I've done a video on this as well. And the clots that I had when I first started embalming 27 years ago, and the clots that I dealt with, Friday, the last person that I embalmed, are the exact same. There's not been any change at all. Unfortunately, there's been people that have utilized, video footage of, those very common clots and made them to be something that they aren't. So if it was different, I'd tell you, friend.
Are family members allowed to
Rhonda.
spend time with
Carol,
the
thanks
deceased
so much.
body
No, go ahead.
before they're embalmed?
Sometimes, although oftentimes they discourage it. If they're going to be embalmed, the sooner that we can do the embalming, generally the better results that we have. And, and then I'll say, and then why don't we go ahead and care for them, do the embalming procedure, then you can come in. Now, sometimes if a person dies at home and the family, wants more time before we pick them up from the house, that's perfectly fine. I generally say, as long as we can pick up within 24 hours after death, hospice has already done what they need to do, then that's fine. So sometimes it's facilitated that way. 1,000 people on the porch tonight on this lovely Tuesday night. Yeah, it was pretty fast. So that's great. And I think we are off to our cat as much as we're doing a cat call tonight. So drop those cats in, folks. So, all right, next question.
Why does our hair still grow after we die?
Good question and big misconception, because hair can look like it grows. Nails can look like they grow. Anyway, what happens though is because our tissue around hair follicles and around the nail bed is so thin, that membrane, and dehydration is a normal part of decomposition anyway, dehydration of our body, because we're made up of so much water. But when we embalm, it gets amplified. So if somebody's buried and then they are disinterred for whatever reason, oftentimes it's going to look like the nails and hair have grown longer, but they haven't. What's actually happened is the membranes and tissue around those areas have dehydrated to the point and pulled back. So it looks like they've actually grown, but they haven't. The area just around has shrinked. But it's a very common misconception and very common question. So,
Cheyenne, I'm going to school to be mortician. Do you have any advice for me?
good job, Cheyenne. I'm so happy. And I tell you what, I think women are going to rule this industry. And I am proud of it, because women are just such natural caregivers. And I think they do an incredible job walking alongside people during this time. But Cheyenne, my advice to you is to take care of yourself from the beginning. Make sure you get your time. Make sure you get your coping mechanisms, like I have my 3, from the very get-go, so you never have any issues with keeping yourself healthy, both emotionally and mentally. Take time off. Make sure that if you need to step out of a situation just to recenter yourself, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to do that. Flores, thanks so much for the cats. Look at those cats rolling in. It's like our real porch.
Love it.
Yep. But you've got to, as much as you are going to want to pour yourself into caring for others, I need you to make sure that you take the time to do the same for you. Welcome to the industry, Cheyenne.
Texas Wildflower, I work in pathology and I do hospital autopsies. Is there a place for me in a funeral home?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure your skill is well vested, and you can always go to embalming school, mortuary science college if you want, become an embalmer. But you also you're already completely comfortable around being deceased, which oftentimes takes several months, if it ever happens for some people. And that shows, to people, not only around the deceased, but with the family, when you're comfortable being able to, by example, show that, it's perfectly fine to be around somebody that has died. And that's already built into you. But if you want to continue your education, and you probably already have a lot of prerequisites done, but become an embalmer, I think you'd be amazing at it. So then on occasion, there's autopsies done at the funeral home, especially for, privately requested from the family, and you would be able to assist with those as well.
Why is it illegal to spread ash on public property, Lambeau Field?
Ooh, Lambeau Field. Well, yeah, I mean, it's most of the time you can scatter cremated remains as long as you have permission from the property owner. So if it's a public property or something like Lambeau Field, that very well, could be the case. They say no. So many people, want to scatter cremated remains at places like, Pebble Beach, the golf course, or Disneyland or Disney World. But I'm going to give you a secret. So, although I would never scatter all of cremated remains in those places, but what I often tell people to fulfill wishes and desires is to take a small symbolic amount of the cremated remains. One of the advantages to cremation is you can do more than one thing. Symbolic amount, I mean, like, a thimble size, or, something that you'd be able to hold between two fingers. Take that with you to those special places and scatter it in a place that you can go back to. Thanks for the crab. But that easily accommodates almost anywhere because nobody's going to recognize that. And it's been done.
Has there been a time that you had to say no to open casket?
Yeah, unfortunately. Jack and Jill, it's heartbreaking for us when it happens. But situations like severe trauma where there's just no longer, we've had head trauma to the point that there's just no more structure left of the head and it's basically virtually gone. More often than not, it's if somebody hasn't been found for a while and they're in such an advanced stage of decomposition that we can't do the embalming and they're kind of beyond being recognizable. Also, deaths deaths that happen in fire, fires due to that can also often be unrecognizable. And what families need to realize is that we really have their best interest in mind. Listen, if somebody wants to see somebody and I can make that happen, I'm going to make it happen because that's going to be important to them. It's going to set them up for success on the beginning of their grief journey. But if it's not going to help them and it's actually going to take away from that experience, and that's the final image that they're going to remember of their deceased loved one, I can't do that. That's not going to be in their best interest. And I have a professional responsibility and personally, morally, to say this isn't going to be the best for you folks.
I always wanted to be one, but no schools near me. Is there an online option?
April, many of the schools do now have an online option for much of the coursework. I think you do have to spend some time going in, doing some lab work on occasion, like for a week or 2 weeks at a time. But I am told that a lot of it can be done online now.
Does an autopsy happen after a person dies from cancer? Also, have you seen parasites in the tumors?
Well, let's start with the parasites. So I don't generally see tumors. That's done by a pathologist, unless it's on the exterior, which sometimes happens. I've never witnessed any parasites coming either on or out of an individual, not parasites that were there prior to death. Postmortem parasites in the form of, maggots, sometimes we have to deal with, but what you're referring to, no. Autopsy does not always happen when somebody dies of cancer. If they have extensive medical history, and oftentimes cancer patients do, generally there's not an autopsy done because they know very well what happened to the person. So,
does embalming change if the person was pregnant?
It can, just depends on if there was an infant inside mom and if the baby had to be removed for a separate examination or if the baby stayed in there. If the baby stays in, that baby is part of the mom's circulatory system. That's just the magic of how that works. And so embalming, will be done to the baby as well. Very sad situation when that happens. Sometimes the baby's removed though. But what I always want to remind people is there is a light, because more times than not, what I've witnessed is in that situation is that the baby's actually been able to be saved, even though mommy was not. Good evening, Brett. Thanks so much for joining tonight, friend.
What is used to make face look less tense? GPA, is that Grandpa's mouth looked too tight. They came in with a syringe.
So sometimes, the embalming itself is a drying process, so it's going to dry and kind of harden the tissue. And sometimes when they're lying down, it can pull, things back, just gravity, and can make it look, too tense. Now, sometimes if they come in with, a syringe and needle with tissue builder, they can kind of change that and manipulate a little bit to soften that look. And change the expression so it's a little bit more of a comfortable expression. So welcome, everyone. As you're just joining us, I'm Eric the Undertaker. Hi, Ethan. Welcome, friend. Good to see you here. And he's saying, Ethan's a funeral director, friend of mine from New Zealand, and he says the majority there is already females, which is wonderful. And majority of our staff, my staff, is actually female, just because we've gravitated towards that. All my staff has been with us 10 years or more, but they just make wonderful caregivers. And I'll work alongside ladies all the time in the industry because they make great partners in the care as well. So go ahead and continue to tap on that screen if you're just joining us. That helps notify TikTok that we are still on. We're going to be on at least until probably 8 o'clock tonight. We got a little bit later of a start. I'm Eric the Undertaker. I'm a licensed mortician, have been for over 27 years. My wife and my wife's joining us tonight, sitting across from me, asking the questions. That voice is real. It's not AI and not Siri. And we try to get as many questions as possible. If for some reason yours gets filtered out, sometimes TikTok does that. If we miss your question, join us on our next live or send us a direct message. We always try to get to those. Anything you have about death, dying, or just your own grief journey you want to share, we're here for that as well. Or anything you ever want to ask a mortician, we'll answer as many as we can. So
This next one's not silly. Do you floss and clean teeth even though the mouth is closed?
Oh, that is a great question, Jordan. I do not floss the teeth. We do essentially brush them because that's just part of the cleaning. In fact, I always start with the embalming process with a total disinfection of the mouth. Part of that's for the deceased. Part of it's just for my own protection. I also often know that, if it's going to be possible for families to touch or even kiss, the face area, that we want to make sure they're safe. So we do the total disinfection. I do have a little disposable toothbrushes that sometimes we'll use. If somebody comes in and they have had purge, which is kind of the post-mortem version of vomit, their mouth needs to be cleaned and freshened up a little bit. So we'll do that, but not really, brushing and flossing, so to speak. So,
have you ever had a situation where the family was unhappy with the way, that their loved one deceased looked?
So Cindy, we're not perfect. We don't always hit the mark. It's rare, actually, because we try to set ourselves up for success. When we sit down with the family, we ask for photographs and we ask for recent photographs so we can help prepare the loved one, because unfortunately we generally don't have the honor of knowing them. And with those photographs, we generally can get fairly close. Sometimes there's some minor changes. We always have the family come in earlier than any public, so they can, tell us if there's changes to the hair, maybe lip color, maybe they want a little more makeup. It's easier to put more makeup on than take it off, generally, if at all possible. Nail polish or things like that, we'll have them, and those changes we can easily make. So
this next one didn't pin, but it's from Nia. It says, what if they're Jewish?
Yeah, so what if they're Jewish? Orthodox Jewish people generally do not want to be embalmed. It's part of their religion and culture, and they don't have to be. Embalming is not required by law, especially when it comes to religion. So they will be cared for under refrigeration. We have wonderful specific Jewish mortuaries in our area that oftentimes those people, will go to of the Jewish faith, and they will prepare them based on their tradition and ceremonies. So, but embalming is generally not the preferred form of care for Jewish people, as well as other religions. Muslims are the same way.
Do they actually put the organs they take out at the bottom of the casket? I was told yes.
So, Alex, what happens and where that comes from is the coroner medical examiner during the autopsy, the pathologist will remove, or the autopsy assistant will remove the organ so they can take tissue samples, sometimes take toxicology, different fluid samples. And then the organs generally are placed into a biohazard bag and put inside the chest cavity, the abdominal area. And then there's a light stitch made to kind of close the person up. And then they go back to the funeral home. So when we receive that person, we're going to take that that bag of organs out because the circulatory system is no longer intact. It's a very different procedure when we do the embalming now because there's no, their heart's not there where it should be, and all the circulatory system is basically disrupted. So we have to embalm all the extremities separately, as well as the head separately, and then we treat those organs individually with a cavity fluid. And then we put them back in the deceased without that bag. Generally, this is my preference, with a hardening compound. So it's kind of a powder, kind of an embalming powder. And so it keeps them dry. And we put them in an approximate anatomical position where they were before we suture the deceased back up. Only thing that doesn't go back into that area is the brain, just because of the way we have to restore the cranial area. The brain goes back into the chest, but we generally try to put it up as close to the head as possible. So,
can you explain the cremation process?
Yeah. So fire cremation is generally, I don't know. The actual process itself, I guess at the crematory, let's start with that. There's documentation and care that has to be done prior to that. But when the cremation actually begins, the cremation chamber is preheated. The heat of cremation is 14 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit generally. The deceased goes into an alternative container if they're not in a casket. In our state, everybody's required to be in some sort of container. Alternative minimum containers are basically a fiberboard cardboard box. Deceased goes in there, and the cremation itself, starts. Most of them are, gas fueled, natural gas fueled, and it's about 2 to 3 hours. Once that is done and the cremation chamber opens, what is left after? We're made up of so much water that the majority of us goes back into the air, which kind of is a cool thing anyway. But really what's left is recognizable skeletal remains. And I mean recognizable. Anyone would see that that's a skeleton. Oftentimes, the order's been disrupted and they're very brittle, but my point is it's very easy to sweep out with a wire brush. It's not like wispy, paper thin ash that you find in a fireplace or a fire pit or something like that. So it's very easy to get all of it out. And then those bones, skeletal remains, have to be processed down in a pulverizer to be able to give back to the family as cremated remains at a consistency of like sand, between sand and crushed seashells. That's kind of in the Western, what we do here. There are some countries, Asian countries, that don't do that process. And then what those go into, they call them bone boxes rather than urns, which are much, much larger. But that processing doesn't take place. But here, it almost always takes place. So.
During cremation, is there a chance of contamination with other ashes?
Yeah, so Jessalicious, that kind of just answers that, because my point in saying that it's large portions of bone that's left over and easily swept out. Is that our dogs barking?
Yes.
What the heck's because
they're locked up.
That's right, because dinner's
still out. Dogs will eat it.
All right, so they it's very easily removed from the cremation chamber, so which means that there's very little chance of any cross contamination. Now, if you get down to a microscopic dust level, is there a little bit? Probably, but not enough to really make a difference. So, wow, we still are at 1,000 people on the porch, 77,000 likes. How's our cat?
549 out of 1,200.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of cats.
We got a lot of cats on the porch tonight. Thanks so much to everybody for that. The hearts, tapping on the hearts is continuing to help notify people that the porch is open. We're so glad you're with us. Let's get to a couple of more questions.
Is it true they remove bodies after 100 years to recycle the cemetery plots?
No. I mean, there's places that even in the United States, like New Orleans, that most of the burial takes place above ground. Part of that's because of the water table being so high there. So they'll have family crypts. And oftentimes, somebody is placed there, deceased is placed in there. And after several years, and they go to bone and clothing, they will go in and kind of move them to the side and make room for somebody else. That's as close as that comes. But as far as, in the United States, at least, as far as, rental of the cemetery plot, and then they have to be removed, does not happen. I don't know if it happens anywhere else in the world. So I don't know if Ethan's still on in New Zealand. I can't imagine it happening there, but maybe it would. Or if I have any other funeral directors from other parts of the world, chime in, folks.
Lisa wants to know, what do you do when you feel like the grief is suffocating you? I lost my nephew, also my best friend.
Yeah. And Lisa, that's exactly what it feels like some days. And I don't know how long it's been. But, here's what I'll tell you is that if it's at a point that it is feeling like it's suffocating you, it's no different than if you were, running a marathon and completely out of breath. It's important for you to stop on your journey and reset and get your breath back. And sometimes that means taking extra time off work. Sometimes that means, doing things, to focus on your faith, if that's important to you. Sometimes it means getting help, maybe from therapy or some sort of grief group. But that's the way that you're going to slowly start to eliminate that suffocating feeling. Is just making sure that you stop everything else you're doing and address it. So it will get easier, my friend. I promise you, it will get easier. But you need to make sure that you allow yourself plenty of time and grace, because your timeline is like no one else's. So don't let anybody else dictate that.
You're halfway to your cackle.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
Happy Days wants to know, does embalming eliminate the possibility to do toxicology? For example, if toxicology was not done before for whatever reason.
Yeah, so, and sometimes people are disinterred, for further investigation, and they may have been embalmed. Doesn't totally eliminate the possibility, no. Is there going to be some things that are more difficult? Yeah, there's going to be some compromise to some of what they can do. But generally speaking, it's still worth it. They still feel that it's worth it. So that tells me, not being a pathologist myself, but that does tell me that there are still things that they can find even after the embalming. Now, that's one of the things that we will get clearance from a coroner. If there's a coroner hold on somebody, we won't do the embalming procedure because it certainly is the best. Best case scenario is if they have to do a postmortem examination and autopsy, it's done without the embalming, without chemicals being injected into the remains. Yeah, thank you for the kitty cats, everyone. We love our cats.
We sure do.
Yeah, well, tonight we do. Thanks so much for the dailies. We appreciate those. Those do a couple of things, help notify people. It's just acknowledgement that we are on. We greatly appreciate that. Also makes you part of our fan club. So we get to know you because we get to know, when you're with us, you get a little badge so we can, give you special notification. And also if we see you come in with that badge on, you have a question, we try to get to those questions, sometimes a little bit earlier, although it's not completely required to have that badge to get a question answered. We get that all the time. But it just gives you kind of a hello, my name is badge on when you pop up onto the porch. So
I'm looking for Cactus Flowers question. I think we have two moderators pinning, so I must have missed it because I didn't even see it up. Either it timed out or it got pinned over.
Okay, let's just have you pin for now.
But I do want to find Cactus Flowers. So if you can repeat your question, I will get that one back up there because I don't remember pinning it. Oh, one I just pinned just disappeared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I talk too long?
I don't remember which one it was.
Penny, thanks so much. Melissa, thanks so much.
Sorry to whoever I just lost that was up there.
That's all right. Champagne problems. We'll get them all. We'll get them all answered as close or as many as we can, right? But eventually.
Nia doesn't think I'm real. But I did ask one for questions. I just couldn't get it pinned.
Erica, thanks so much. My wife is very real. We're still trying to talk her into going on camera. Mm-hmm. Someday.
Is it true that after cremation, the ashes can be pressed into a black diamond?
Yeah, that is an actual thing. An artificial stone, diamond, emerald, sapphire, can be made from a part of the cremated remains because they're carbon based.
How about a remembrance tattoo?
Hmm.
Can you use the loved ashes?
Yes, there are people that take a very small symbolic portion of cremated remains and have the tattoo artists inject them into them. So yeah, that is fairly common.
Is there a way to find out if someone had a medical POA or proxy at the time of someone's death?
Yeah, Erica, it's very difficult after the fact. Because that's generally not something that's filed with the state, so it's not a public record. The only thing you may want to reach out is if the person was under hospice care or in a hospital, they may have record of that. So I think that's Erica. Yep. Ka-chow's Erica.
And here's Cactus Flower. What's one of the worst traumas you had to work on?
Well, I mean, the worst traumas I've ever experienced were ones that I couldn't do anything, unfortunately, including, somebody that was, fell into a wood chipper. I would have to say, some of the worst that I've ever dealt with were individuals that were hit by a train, and not necessarily even in a vehicle. They were hit, actually on the tracks, sometimes intentionally. And it's very, very difficult. We've had success with being able to still have a family do viewing, but those are some of the worst.
Do you believe the spirit leaves the body after death?
Yes, I believe the spirit leaves the body upon death. I think it happens very quickly because I'm confident that by the time we receive them into our care, that spirit is long gone.
When the plot was dug for my mother-in-law, prepaid family plots, there was someone already buried there.
Yikes, what a surprise. I'm curious what they did about that. Did they have to move the person, or did they have to move your spot? But that definitely was a mistake on the cemetery's part. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
As someone that works with those chemicals, how do you avoid long-term effects? Are there any?
Yeah, so we have to be careful, Denise. They're pretty caustic chemicals. They've gotten better. Modern embalming fluids are better than they used to be. But we do use respirator masks to make sure that the fumes, are very minimally we breathe in. Breathing in is the main issue. So our lungs are the most important, or the most things that are susceptible to those fumes.
What happens to a loved one's surgical metal? For example, plates and screws or prosthetic knees, etc.
Tracy, great question. And another common question. So if they're cremated, which I'm assuming that you're probably talking about, any metal that's in the body is removed after cremation. The only exception to that would be if they had a pacemaker or defibrillator that has a battery in it, then we'll remove that prior. Anything else is going to be removed after, and then we will give that back to the family if they want it, or we will give it to a regulated metal recycler. Thanks so much for the cats, Marty. Appreciate that so much.
Once someone is embalmed, do they no longer require to be in refrigeration?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Generally speaking, if somebody's embalmed, refrigeration is not going to be required any longer, which many people appreciate.
Where does the blood go? Blood banks?
No, it's not viable to be able to use for blood banks. It goes down the drain. Unfortunately, it goes down and through the same water treatment center as any other waste. Dave, thanks so much.
What is the purpose of embalming?
Embalming is to temporarily preserve and sanitize the body. So funeral services or viewing can take place. Sometimes it's not generally required by law, except in certain situations. And sometimes if we're shipping, we specialize in shipping remains internationally. So it's needed then because that person's going to be out of refrigeration for an extended amount of time. But for the most part, not embalming, or embalming is not required by law, but it is to, temporarily preserve and sanitize the remains.
Why would you put the brain in the chest cavity?
Yeah. So Matthew, because of the way the type of tissue the brain's made up of is very, 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 very soft. There's not really, after death, there's really not a lot of substance to it. and it would potentially cause a lot of leaking problems if we were to try to put it back in the cranial cavity area. So the incision is basically from ear to ear. Tissue is pulled back either way, and then the skull is opened up. So it'd be very difficult to put it back in there. It's just much safer and secure in the chest or in the chest cavity area.
Is this the one where someone was already in the plot?
Yeah.
My grandma's plot was filled, unfortunately. They had to resume the body and place her somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly upsetting for you that happened. You know, something went wrong with the records there.
Oops, not pinning. 1 second.
Having trouble pinning sometimes.
Sometimes they just won't pin, and I think it gets filtered.
117,000 likes. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate the tapping and the gifts you're giving tonight. They do help. They help us, and they help you as we build this community together.
For parents that don't want to leave their child in the funeral home alone at night, do you let them stay?
Are you talking about our children?
No, I think a deceased.
Oh, for parents that don't want to leave their child alone at home. Oh, no, Denise. No, not overnight. I don't think our insurance, unfortunately, would ever allow that. I mean, we would have to be there as well. I really have never had that be an issue. We try to let them spend as much time as possible. Now, there are times where we will take the deceased, both children and adults, back to the family home, and they could have an overnight vigil there if they wanted. We can accommodate that. So,
the one that wouldn't let me pin is by Sweet by Shay. I signed a waiver to see my parents after an I signed a waiver to see my parents after an accident. Is there ever a time that you cannot allow viewing?
Well, there's times that we certainly don't recommend it. And if somebody's insisting from the family, they will have to sign a waiver. But I'll tell you this, if very few times I've had family still insist, every single time they've come out and said, I am so sorry that we did that. We should have listened to you. Because it has to be pretty bad for us to recommend that. So,
what do you do with the body after a viewing? Do they stay in the chapel all night until the funeral?
Yeah, if they've been embalmed, they generally stay in the chapel. We always close the casket. It's kind of tradition and protocol to do there. Also, if there was ever a fire in the building, it would help protect, the remains, and then open them. But generally, they stay right in the chapel until the next morning services, wherever we're going. Sometimes we move them out if they're going to be going straight to the church or somewhere, and we need to move somebody else in. But
is it easy to sell your plot if you decide to cremate instead?
Generally, yeah. There's cemetery brokers that you can Google, and they can help facilitate, kind of like real estate brokers for plots that people are not going to utilize. Florence, thank you so much. Did we reach our cat goal?
80%.
80%. That's a lot of cats.
962 cats.
Ooh.
I love it. Eric, not so much.
Not so much, but honey, it's your night.
Thank you. Oh, it didn't pin. Okay.
Oh, Elizabeth, thanks so much for the roses and the cats from Spotlight.
Have you ever felt a connection to the dead?
Well, I feel connection to their family. And like I said before, I oftentimes get, stories, that help me connect, to the deceased. But never any type of supernatural connection or anything like that. More so the family. And my goal is to connect with them so I can be able to, fulfill their needs and provide the support they're going to need. So
that was Chloe. It wouldn't let me pin it.
Well, sorry, Chloe.
Anyone ever wake up before embalming?
No, never happened. Don't expect it to ever happen, Raven. So,
is mummification the same as embalming?
So mummification is kind of embalming amplified. Embalming is a drying process anyway, and mummification is all about drying. It's just a different, the ancient mummification is, very different, but it was all about drying out not only the organs, but the exterior tissue and everything. So in a way, yes, but because oftentimes if somebody's embalmed with a high index fluid, we immediately have to start counteracting the dehydration because we will witness mummification starting to take place, which is over drying. So
I'm transferring my plot to my niece. Can I put my cremains in the same plot?
yeah, you should be able to. Absolutely. There's most cemeteries will allow 2 to 4 sets of cremated remains in a casketed grave, but it's going to be up to the cemetery. You're going to have to talk to them, directly. And of course, state regulations. Thanks so much for the dailies. Really appreciate those, and join in the fan club. One thing that I will mention is we also have a fan club level called Super Fans. It is a subscription, and one of the things that we're going to start doing, you can find it up here. We are going to start having some chats that are going to be private for fans and super fans. So there'll be much less people. Some of those will be grief oriented only. And everyone will have the opportunity to join those. They just will have to be part of the super fan or the fan subscription base. So it's not required. We're still the majority of our lives are still going to be just like this, open to everyone. But we've had some interest in people having kind of some smaller, more intimate talks as well. So we're going to try to help accommodate that. Elizabeth, thanks so much for the cats. Yay, cats. Yay, cats.
Strawberry Face's pin just timed out,
Yeah.
but wants to know if you sell the hair for wigs.
No, the only time, if the family chooses to do that, prior to them to coming into our care, one time I had somebody in our care that the family wanted to do that, and they had the hair donated, but it's not common. But generally that's done, prior to them coming into our care.
Sweet by Shay did regret signing the waiver.
Yeah, it's always been that. And I just wish people would trust their Undertaker, because we really want nothing but the best for all of you.
Curious, what happens to the bodies with no ID or families who can't afford cremation or funerals?
Yeah, so generally we have to get either the coroner medical examiner or public administrator or guardian in to help. And ultimately they'll try to locate family if they haven't. Sometimes they've been estranged for many years to help facilitate that, or they take control of the assets, and sometimes even the state or county has to, pay for the direct cremation. So look at those hearts. Those are awesome. Did you see those?
Oh, now I see it.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked on anyone famous?
Well, California Dreamer, probably not, but a couple of politicians, that some people would know. I've taken care of some band members of some pretty famous singers that were there, part of their family, with them for years and years and years. And some of those famous singers actually attended the service. High profile families I've had, but no movie stars or anybody like that like everybody and anyone would know.
Are cats not your spirit animal?
Yeah, Nita, they're not my spirit animal. But I have an appreciation for them just because my wife loves them so much. And so we have one indoor cat named Story, and then we have several now outdoor cats, porch cats. And they do help with the gophers, I will say that. But
Polly, Poppy, Porter, and Percy.
Yep. And
Lola.
the original, Lola. Yeah.
But I'll bet if you had quizzed him, he didn't know any of their names.
Not the new ones. No, I know, sorry. They're not my
It's okay.
spirit animal.
Brianna is currently in mortuary school. What's your hardest class?
What was my hardest class? Probably organic chemistry. I was never a fan of chemistry. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with chemistry. Definitely, and specifically organic chemistry.
How long does embalming take?
So non-autopsied, person is going to take me anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes, with prep, injection, embalming, cleaning, cleanup after. So autopsy person is going to take 3 hours plus generally. There's a lot of suturing that has to be done after.
Do underground vaults fill up with water?
Yeah, hard to tell because we bury them and generally don't unbury them, but it's always possible. Some, claim to not and are built, differently to not fill up with water. I always tell families it's better to put somebody in a situation that if water's going to get in, it can get out, rather than something that might say it's, sealed, but then it falters and gets water in, then it's very difficult for any water to get out. So, yeah.
Do you ever feel a presence of maybe a soul as you prepare their body?
Thank you, Florence. No, I think that spirit, what's more significant to me, Jay, is the lack of life, because as precious as the remains are that I may be helping care for and working on, it's an inanimate object, and there's no doubt about it because it is completely lifeless. So the spirit, the soul that provided that life is gone. That's more significant to me. But ever a connection of a spirit or soul? No, that has long since, left long before they could come into our care. So
We answered this question at the very beginning, but that was so long ago. So I'm going to ask it again
Sure.
from another person. When I die, can I use my own makeup, like if they give them my makeup bag?
Yeah. Oftentimes we have whole makeup bags given to us, and there are certain ones that we can utilize. So like lipstick, sometimes eye makeup, there's specific colors. The base makeup, foundation, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, just depending on what we have to cover, because there are specific mortuary cosmetics that have a different makeup that, makeup of the makeup that you help cover better post-mortem, different discoloration. So 1.2 thousand on the porch tonight. And we still got, 24 more minutes. So try to get to as many questions as we can. So thanks so much, everybody, for the gifts, the hearts, the cats. I've seen even some lightning bolts tonight. We've got more rain coming in tomorrow.
And some porch lights.
And some porch lights. Love the porch lights.
What do you wish estate planning attorneys did better with death planning?
Well, I wish Casey, they would educate people on the durable power of attorney for healthcare, or in some states it's called the Advanced Healthcare Directive. It just makes it so much easier if that's in place. Even if there's a surviving spouse, oftentimes having somebody else that's kind of, one step removed, from the immediate family, having the ability to make the funeral arrangements, which durable power of attorney for healthcare and advanced healthcare directive, helps with their healthcare decisions. But the final thing is helping with funeral arrangements, final disposition. And that can be an incredible gift to the family, so they don't have to do it. And that authorizes somebody else to take responsibility, for that. Of course, in partnership with the family. But there's things that they can sign for that, the family doesn't have to worry about. And I wish estate, attorneys would help, kind of promote that a little bit more.
How long did it take for you personally to be comfortable doing embalming?
Well, it takes a while to become, whoa, look at that. I'm Elvis. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't know, probably 3-4 months before you're completely comfortable being around it. It took me years to get, to a point that I felt like embalming's, I'm still learning. I still learn even 27 years later. But comfortable, I would say 3-4 months.
My son passed from a rare blood cancer. Do I need to be careful with ashes?
No, they're perfectly clean. There really isn't anything cleaner than cremated remains. They've been completely disinfected, by heat, the intense heat, and they're not going to transmit anything at all. Thanks, Dee Dee Den.
What's the farthest you've transported a body internationally?
Mimi, so we specialize in that, and there isn't really any place that I haven't. We do a great, 6 to 8 a month. We, help families send back to the Philippines. Almost the same. We have somebody going to Guadalajara right now. We have somebody going to Guatemala right now. We fairly frequently ship to Africa, like to Nigeria, South Africa, UK. We've shipped to Pakistan, Iraq, Ukraine, when we still could do that. It's not possible right now. Russia. Samoa. The farthest corners of the world we've shipped to. And you know what? I've always said I want to get a map, just a simple map up on one of my walls, and start pinning that, because I've never done that. And it would be fascinating to track that.
I'm on it.
Are you on
We're
it?
going to get that map.
All right, let's get that map.
Cheryl.
Can you do me a favor now though, and text our daughter and see if she could help quiet the dog down?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl, my son had some red bluish on his upper left around by his neck on his shirt in the casket.
Yeah, probably from the cosmetics, Cheryl, would be my guess. I don't think it would have been, there could have been some a little bit of purge from the side of his mouth or nasal cavity that they, had to clean up, and could have stained a little bit as well, because that can have so red bluish. Yeah, that could have a reddish tint to it as well. So.
Do you fear death now? More now because of your job?
No, actually just the opposite. So I don't fear death. There's no doubt in my mind that the remains are completely lifeless. And that affirms my belief that there's an afterlife. But I also have evolved to a philosophy that, if we take our focus off of death and put our focus on being grateful for what and who we have in our life on a daily basis, because there's no guarantee any of that or any of those people are going to be here the next day. Believe me, there's no guarantee. That I know. If you put your focus on being grateful for that and them, any fear of death will dissipate. It just goes away. It's just like magic. So focus on who you have, what you have. Don't worry about death. Death's going to happen, friend. We're all going to die. It's with great common denominator, but there's no sense investing an ounce of worry or fear into it.
Do you ever ship a deceased person on a cargo airline?
So there's a few cargo only airlines, especially during COVID, because a lot of the normally we use passenger planes. So United, Philippines Air, Korean Air, Air France, American, Delta, Lufthansa, all of those will ship human remains as well, and it goes into the cargo area of the plane. During COVID, there was a lot of airlines that would not, if somebody died of COVID, they would not ship the human remains, and we had to use some cargo only. And they still exist, and we can utilize them, but it's rare. 95% of the time they're shipped on passenger. In fact, fun funeral fact, is that any passenger airline that you get on, so generally 3 out of every 10 that you might be sitting in that airline is going to have human remains in the cargo area. So about 30% of them.
Is there insurance carrier that you recommend?
There is insurance for funeral insurance. Homesteaders is a good one specifically. Forethought is a good one. Globe Life. But Homesteaders is primarily who we use. And I have a lot of faith in them. So.
Are the shipping costs pretty pricey?
Depends on where you're going in the world. So domestically, like in the United States, it's going to be around $600 to $800 from one side to the other. If we're shipping to Mexico, it's going to be right around $1,000, generally. If we're shipping to the Philippines, it's going to be anywhere from $2,000 to $3,500. Shipping to Africa, it can be over $4,000. So, but for what you're doing, it's still fairly reasonable. So oftentimes families, they find that it's less expensive to ship a loved one back to their home country to be buried than to buy cemetery property here, which can be very, very expensive. So
Jen recently had a friend pass away. He was found with his fists clenched. Is that normal?
yeah, I mean, it's not common, but it's not normal. Oftentimes, major cardiac events or stroke or something like that can cause even immediate severe trauma can cause the fist to clench, and then rigor mortis sets in, makes it harder, but that will pass. Rigor mortis, will naturally go away, and generally that can be removed at the funeral home, and softened.
How do you sleep at night?
Well, sometimes I don't sleep well in general, especially right now. I don't. It's very difficult because, like last night, I got a death call a little after midnight. I didn't fall back asleep until 3:00. That's the problem. I generally can fall asleep pretty easily, right, honey?
Yes,
Yeah,
very quickly.
Very quickly. But then I get woken up for various reasons, and it's difficult to go back to sleep.
Then you're just up.
Yeah, then I'm just up. So, but as I don't worry if that's what you're talking about, or if you're talking about being fearful, or if I think about the deceased at all when I'm sleeping, no.
Can you use regular nail polish to paint nails?
It's always regular nail polish. Yeah, there's no special nail polish for the dead. It's the regular nail polish works just fine.
Does your job ever affect you personally and emotionally?
Affect me? I mean, influence. Yes. I mean, I get emotional. There's definitely situations that are very hard to deal with. But I make sure that I have my coping mechanisms in place so they don't, I still stay healthy, both emotionally and mentally.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that a good enough answer? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a common question.
A longer one, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Well, because I've answered it tonight, so I thought I'd give it the more Reader's Digest version. So
maybe this is an obvious question. Are they embalmed before being sent home, shipped?
Internationally, it's required. Most countries require the embalming to be done, both for disinfection and because the remains are going to be out of refrigeration for an extended amount of time. So sometimes it can take, a day and a half, for them to get back, for instance, like to the Philippines. So,
is it true that the body stops urinating and defecating before death?
Julie, the only truth to that is that oftentimes people are very sick and they're terminally, they are, when they're terminally ill, they will stop eating and drinking. And so those things are naturally going to stop as well.
Can embalming fluid become an addiction for morticians?
No, as far as the consumption of it in some ways, no. The only thing that used to be done, I don't know if it's done, is they used to lace marijuana with embalming fluid, and I guess it enhanced it somehow, which is crazy to me. But that used to be a thing. But it generally wasn't morticians that was doing it. It was people stealing embalming fluid and doing it. So, listen, most embalmers, if they don't want to be around the fumes of embalming fluid, it's not a good smell. It's not an easy thing to be around, without a respirator. It can force you out of the room, physically hurt you. There was years ago that I had a spill of cavity fluid, and it literally took me weeks. It burnt the inside of my respiratory system, my lungs and everything. I could feel it. I felt like I had a horrible cold, and it was from that. It's not pleasant. So,
do you ever feel a ghostly presence?
No, I don't, Kelly. I've never really acknowledged any presence of ghosts. I'm not denying the existence or supporting the existence, but I don't know why they would hang out with me, because I really don't know them. If they, if they're trying to connect with somebody, I think they would connect, with more so with their family than me. I'm just a stranger, just trying to help, their family out.
Do you find releasing doves at a service to be a nice touch or just a waste of money?
Yeah, I think it's often a nice touch, Shannon, and it's very common. And one of our locations, many people do it, and it's beautiful. So The carrier pigeons is what they are. They'll call them doves, and it's fascinating what they do. I always think it's amazing. But the families, and it's often beautiful because they circle around. It's a great, added touch if the family wants to do it.
Is it true that your nails and hair still grow after death?
Yeah, we've answered this already once. We'll answer it again.
I think they missed it.
Yeah, it's not true that happens, but what happens is the tissue around, because as the decomposition takes place, dehydration, from the body, and it's sometimes amplified by the embalming process. So the tissue membranes around the nail bed will start to dehydrate and pull back and expose bone. So it looks like the nails have grown, but they really haven't. Same way with hair follicles. It's the exact same. They do not grow anymore.
Can you explain pod tree burial?
Yeah, so the cremated remains are placed into a specialized urn that also oftentimes has seedlings or seeds within it, and that's buried and placed, and then it grows out from there. So it's a beautiful alternative as well. I'm going to ask a favor of people because we're close to 200,000 likes. So if you could just simply tap that screen, that will greatly help that number. Let's pop that over to 200,000 before we finish. That would be greatly appreciated. That helps the acknowledgement and helps us push out. There we go. Thank you for tapping. And if you have a daily heart me, you can drop that in as well. Those will help those as well. How's our cat goal, dear?
You made your cat goal.
Gosh, yes. Now let's get a dog to chase all the cats off. Dogs are
I love dogs too.
Yeah, we do. We have 2 dogs as well. We have plenty. And a house bunny.
We do have a bunny.
We have a bunny that lives inside. My oldest daughter, went to an event at a house, kind of a Friendsgiving over the weekend, and they had a house pig inside.
A mini pig.
A mini pig that lived inside.
That's
there's
potty
another
trained.
dog. Somebody just gave us the dog, a little corgi. And she immediately got into the car when I picked her up and said, "We need to get a house pig." I'm like, absolutely not. No way are we doing that. Monique, thanks so much for the roses. There's Chris with the daily. Thanks so much. And we're already over 200,000. See how easy that is? It's like, bam, it just happens. So, all right, let's get to a few more questions before we say goodbye.
I've pinned Drea 3 times here. I've kept it so I wouldn't lose it. Drea wanted to know, first of all, where Tea Girl is to make sure that you can just continue on for the night. You need more tea.
Yeah, I do need more tea. And she wants me to keep going.
Yeah. And Dre also asked, how long is embalming good for before it expires or doesn't work anymore?
Embalming, how long is it good for before? Oh, thanks so much. Let's talk about, so if the embalming's done, we will vary the embalming fluid index, which is the strength, depending on how long we need to hold the remains. I think you're saying how long can we hold remains with embalming? It's meant to be temporary, meant to be a matter of weeks, but we've had situations where we've had to hold somebody, care for them much longer. Up to 9 months was our longest, and she was still beautiful. The family still, we shipped her back to Nigeria actually, and they still had services there and viewing. So,
tell us a story when something creepy has happened to you on the job.
Something creepy. Well, I really don't consider.
This is Sarah Huckabee. Won't pin.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee. Isn't she a governor now of a state?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
Yeah.
Well, she's on the live.
No, she's not. It's not really her, right?
I don't know. But I can't pin it. It won't let me pin.
Yep. Creepy. I don't consider anything creepy, but I've had unique situations. If you're looking for a ghost story, I just don't have them. So I've had, miracles happen that may have been influenced by the deceased, definitely influenced by God, in my opinion. But as far as something that was actually creepy, I've had things that have startled me but are completely explained. I don't have ghost stories, right?
Yeah.
I know it's disappointing.
I still ask the questions so
I know.
you can tell just
Yeah.
because we get so many questions.
We do get a lot of questions for it, and I just can't make them up. But yeah, I don't. Now I have a staff member that has kind of a ghost story. And it was actually on video as well. And one of these nights I'm going to have her come on and tell that story. So I'm not saying that they don't happen necessarily, but I do have a lot of unexplained things that happen though. And those are in my, my Porch Talk series that you can go to, what I call miracles. Even the one I posted today is kind of like that. So, about the bagpipers, so, but not creepy.
Do you have any advice for grieving 12 deaths in 1 year?
Wow. That's grief amplified more than I've ever heard. And I am so sorry you're having to deal with that, but just one day at a time. And I would encourage you to get some help. I mean, you're going to need some help with that. There's just, one death alone is so heavy for someone, especially in the first year. But, and I'm assuming this is probably made up of family and friends, and, just allow yourself plenty of time, and don't lump them all one. You're not grieving times 12. You're grieving 12 separate people, and they're going to affect you differently. The journey's going to be differently, and you need to allow yourself space, time, and grace to handle each and every one of them. But I'm so sorry, my friend. Please reach out if there's anything we can do, or if you need any individual grief coaching, please reach out.
How do you handle a burned body? Very
difficult, cool grandma, to do. Oftentimes they're burnt beyond recognition if they died. And oftentimes the embalming can't be done because circulatory system has then been compromised. So we have to care for them under refrigeration. And oftentimes viewing is just not possible.
Can a body be re-embalmed after some period of time?
No, generally not, because, the tissue, and including even the vessels, are going to harden from the embalming process because it's a drying process. So so it'd be very difficult to go in and kind of reanimate those vessels. That embalming fluid is going to, somewhat solidify even internally. So it'd be very, very difficult to do it. Will we treat certain areas sometimes? Yes, but generally we'll do those, by hypoinjection. So needle, going in for the tissue specifically. If it didn't get saturated, completely, with the embalming fluid, then we'll treat those separately.
When you attend funerals, do you find yourself extra judgy or other morticians' work?
Yeah, I try not. I don't go to a lot of funerals that not in our own care, but I try not to be. Listen, I'm not there to judge other people's work. It's not for me to do. That's ultimately for the family to do. And my only wish and my prayer is that they are served, well.
Alex Moon, what advice would you give somebody wanting to go to college for mortuary?
Yeah, my advice would be, if you haven't worked for a funeral home before and taken a period of discernment, then you should do that first, even if it's just part-time. Find a funeral home, preferably a family-owned funeral home. Tell them you want to spend some time. It might be, cleaning, washing cars. It might be helping with services. It might be helping move flowers or documentation, maybe even helping dress deceased. All kinds of things you can do, not being licensed and being able to support. And if you haven't done that yet, I would encourage you to do that. Spend some time working for a funeral home to make sure it's a good fit for you, and it's a good fit overall. So something you're going to be passionate about, because that's important.
What is the hardest technical thing to do when preparing the body, and why?
Hardest technical thing is oftentimes in the embalming procedure is deciding the makeup of the fluid composition. So the different fluids for different, causes of death, different time frame that we're going to have to care for the remains, different makeup of the body, sometimes even the age, the weight of the body. That's kind of our, scientific guessing. in the beginning. So, and oftentimes is the most difficult because we only have one chance to get it right. So,
My fiance passed today. I meet with the funeral home tomorrow. What should I expect to do tomorrow?
oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Well, they're going to sit down and they're going to need to get the vital statistical information for the death certificate. So prepared to have that, including social security number, probably the names of your fiance's parents, including the mother's maiden name, just vital statistical information they're going to need for the death certificate. And then they're going to lead you through the arrangement process and show you the different options for disposition. I don't know if you already know that. Answer any questions that you might have. I think the most important thing that they can do tomorrow for you is to listen to you and what your needs are going to be, not only for your grief journey, but for memorialization, for the funeral. They're going to show you those options based on that. Sometimes it's going to involve merchandise. They're going to help advise you on how many certified copies of the death certificate to get for different things, which are going to be necessary. They'll talk to you about different, funeral options. Maybe if you're needing cemetery property, they can point you in the right direction. So, my wish though is most importantly is they listen to what you're going to need. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Good evening, Pammy.
Do the remains for aquamation come out the same as cremation?
So there's skeletal remains at the end. But what happens is rather than most of us going in fire cremation, we go into the air, the body's broken down into a solution that's heated up and becomes part of that solution. And then that solution is flushed out first. So some of us just go down the drain and then the skeletal remains are removed and processed down. And that's what's given back as cremated remains. All right, let's get to maybe one more and we will play our goodbye songs. And you and I, Mom and Dad, will go finish our dinner and start to get ready for the next day.
When you drain a dead body, where does the blood go? In special bins or regular sewage?
Yeah, surprising for most people, it goes down the drain, Sam. So down the and is treated, water treatment system just like any other waste.
You had a lot of requests for a miracle story tonight. Do you have maybe a recommendation of one of your videos they should watch?
Yeah, I would watch if you go to my Porch Talk and talk or go to the playlist and look for the balloon, look for the watch, look for the ornament, which is very personal to me, regarding my own son. And even the one that I just posted called The Luck of the Irish I think even that was kind of guided by God, was a little bit of a miracle. Did they actually want me to tell a story tonight or were they just...
They did, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Dandelion in itself, was another amazing one. But maybe as we kind of close, I can tell you the story about the balloon.
Okay, that's why I waited till the end to tell you that.
Yeah, we've told that one before, but I'll start some music here. So one time we had a service, and the gentleman was young, early 40s when he died after glioblastoma, brain cancer. And he had a son that was, I think, maybe 8 or 9 years old. And he didn't say a word until the graveside service. And then he wanted to get up and tell a little bit about his dad. And he got up to the front and he explained what he was going to miss most about his dad was playing ball with him. They used to go toss a baseball in the backyard. And how much he just loved being with his dad and talking to his dad during that time. And as the little boy was up there by the casket, I noticed a white balloon come from the far end of the cemetery. And that white balloon came closer and closer to where the graveside was. Had nothing to do with the service, came far from outside the cemetery grounds. And that white balloon came and bounced off the corner of the casket and then right down, landed right at the feet of the little boy. just as the little boy was telling about how much he loved playing ball with his dad that was now gone. And that little boy picked up that balloon and just immediately looked out at everyone at that service and took the balloon and popped it up into the air again. And just as he did, another gust of wind picked that balloon up and carried it up and over to the other side of the cemetery and over the fence and out of the sight. And everybody in that service was just astonished. There was so much love and care for not only the little boy, but the entire family. And you can't tell me that that wasn't a miracle, because not only did that brave little boy need that more than anything, but everyone there got to witness that balloon coming and becoming part of the little boy's story. Stories like that make me so grateful to get to what I get to do on a daily basis, and how God plays a part in that and help guiding families, giving them peace and strength. And I'm also grateful for all of you and how much strength you've given everybody else as you come in and be part of this community, but even strength for myself and my wife and my family as we get to talk about not only our own grief, but what I get to do, and you reach out to us and share your stories as well. And that gives us strength as well. So I truly am grateful for you. I'm grateful for all of you that joined us tonight. We'll play a couple of our closing songs and then wish you incredible rest tonight as you rest up for your continuing of the week. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Go ahead and drop in the comments where you're saying good night from tonight.
The tears may fall, but they don't stay long. They water the roots that make us strong. The night still hums that same old tune.
Texas.
A
Tampa,
song
Oklahoma.
of love beneath the moon. So light that lamp, let the shadows
Thank you so much.
part. There's grace still waiting in every heart. Though the sorrow lingers, we're not
Good night, Louisiana.
alone. We find our peace here before we go home.
Good night, Chicago. Tennessee. Australia. Kansas. New York. Wisconsin. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you back Thursday night. I think it's 7 o'clock is our next scheduled Porch Talk Live.
Night's grown quiet, the stories are through, but this little porch still waits for you. The coffee's gone cold, the stars are bright. We'll keep that swinger rocking through the night. So till next time on the porch, my friend, where the laughter and the healing never end. May your heart stay light, your troubles run short. We'll see you soon, back here on the porch.
This song's called Back Here on the Porch. I wrote the lyrics to it. Good night, everyone.